"You missed a spot, mop man." Laughter cut through the stale air. 3 junior execs leaned against the counter, sipping designer coffee and smirking like boys who'd never been told no. He was on one knee, carefully wiping up a spilled latte beside the vending machine. Gray uniform, sturdy boots, name tag, Jack. He didn't look up, didn't snap back, just finished the job, wrung out the mop, and stood with a quiet kind of dignity. His face calm, his silence impenetrable. "Guy gives me the creeps," one whispered as they walked out, shoulders brushing in smug unison. Inside the nearby conference room, glass-walled, sleek, Madison Hart had seen the whole thing. She didn't say a word either, but her eyes lingered, not in pity, in curiosity, because something about Jack didn't fit. He moved like a man who didn't need a title, like someone who had already seen more than this building would ever understand. Nobody knew, not yet, that before Jack was a janitor, he was Commander Jack Miller, once responsible for lives, missions, and choices that changed history, classified history. He had chosen this life, but the world was about to remember what he had walked away from. Stick around. This story isn't about revenge. It's about grace, strength, and the power of quiet love. 3 months earlier, suburban Texas, early morning, still dark outside. The only light comes from a modest kitchen window. The coffee machine sputtered quietly. Jack Miller sat at the edge of a small wooden table, his posture straight, a worn-out flannel shirt pulled over his broad shoulders. No phone, no distractions, just silence, and the soft clink of a spoon stirring oatmeal. At 5:03 a.m. he rose, poured black coffee into a faded thermos, folded the newspaper he still insisted on reading cover to cover, pulled on his uniform, clean, pressed, same every day, gray with a blue patch, facilities maintenance. No one called him sir anymore. No one saluted, and that was fine by Jack. That life, it was behind him, or at least that's what he told himself. His house was small, barely decorated. A single photo frame sat by the TV. A woman, smiling, her hand resting gently on Jack's shoulder. She was gone now. Cancer. 5 years back. Some mornings, he still reached across the bed before remembering. Other mornings, he'd stand outside the closed door of her old art room, hand resting on the knob, but never opening it. Jack didn't need much. Just order. Simplicity. Quiet. That's why the janitor job at Ridgewell Industries made sense. Nobody bothered him. He worked nights, early mornings, cleaned, repaired, fixed what others didn't notice. He liked that, doing what needed to be done without applause. But that wasn't all there was to Jack Miller. In his garage, neatly organized, sat the artifacts of another life. A duffel bag with fading patches. A stack of old military journals, dog-eared and coded in quiet shorthand. A metal case closed, but not forgotten. And in a lockbox under the workbench, a folded flag and a letter from the Department of Defense marked, classified. Jack had led teams into places few Americans could find on a map. He'd negotiated in silence, protected without credit, and made decisions that would never make headlines. And then one day he walked away. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't injury. It was choice. After losing Sarah, the love of his life, Jack realized he could command armies but not fate. So he traded missions for mop buckets. And in that trade he found something most men never get. Stillness. A chance to listen to the quiet. To carry grief, not outrun it. At work, he was the first one in and the last one out. He remembered names. Said ma'am and sir to interns and CEOs alike. He fixed the coffee machine when no one else could. Left extra paper towels in the bathroom because someone always forgot. No one noticed. But Jack wasn't doing it to be noticed. His discipline didn't retire when his uniform came off. It lived in how he folded his rags. In the way he lined up every broom and cleaner like gear ready for deployment. In the way he watched, always watched, without judgment but never blind. Some days he missed the adrenaline. But more often, he missed the conversations he used to have with Sarah over Sunday eggs. The ones about simple things. Whether to repaint the porch. Whether to plant more hydrangeas. She used to say, "You're a fortress with flowers inside, Jack." He never knew what she meant until she was gone. He lived alone now. No family nearby. Just the people at Ridgewell Industries. And among them, Madison Hart. She never looked down on him. Didn't speak much to him either. But when she passed him in the hallway, she nodded. Genuinely. Jack had seen hundreds of leaders in his time. She was the real kind, sharp eyes, steady hands, always 10 steps ahead. But she was surrounded by wolves in silk ties. And she didn't always see them coming. Jack did. He always saw the threats first. Even now. And though he tried to stay small, invisible, a part of him was still ready. Not for war, but for something. He didn't know what. Not yet. But it was coming. And this time, it wouldn't be bullets. It would be trust. And choice. And maybe, just maybe, love again. Back in the Ridgewell Industries high-rise. Breakroom light replaced now by the cold gleam of the 27th floor boardroom. Steel. Glass. Leather chairs that never creak. Jack stood quietly at the back wall, rolling up an extension cord from a projector cart. Same uniform. Same silence. But now, the room was filled with people who barely noticed him until someone did. Who let the janitor in during exec briefings? The voice cut through like a blade dulled by arrogance. Trent Lawson, Senior VP of Strategic Operations. Ivy League charm with a temper hidden just beneath the designer suit. He was the kind of man who shook your hand while calculating your worth. "He's just picking up the equipment," Madison Hart answered without looking up from her notes. Her tone was calm. Clipped. "Sure. But let's not pretend he belongs in here. I mean, come on," Trent scoffed, turning to the table of executives with an exaggerated grin. "Next thing you know, he'll be giving market forecasts." A few of them chuckled, nervous, shallow. They didn't want to pick sides. Jack didn't react. He bent down, picked up a cable and coiled it neatly with both hands. Measured. Focused. He didn't break eye contact with the job in front of him. That unnerved Trent more than if he had shouted. "Jesus, he doesn't even blink," Trent muttered. Madison closed her folder. Her eyes flicked toward Jack. Still calm. Still quiet. Then she stood. "That'll be all for today," she said to the room, though everyone heard the tension coiled beneath her professionalism. As the room began to clear, Trent lingered near the door, looking back over his shoulder at Jack. "Hey, Chief," he called. "You ever think about aiming a little higher? We're hiring in the mailroom too." Jack finally turned to face him. His eyes were steady, gray-blue, like a still lake that could swallow a storm. "No, sir," he said. "I like cleaning up messes." Trent's smile twitched. Madison watched the exchange in silence, her gaze flicking between the two men. One, loud and proud, rattling chains he didn't earn. The other, grounded, unshaken, like he'd seen this before, like he knew how it would end. As Jack left the room, pushing the projector cart down the hallway, whispers followed behind him like smoke. "Is he always like that? What's his deal? He gives me the chills, man." Downstairs, in the service hallway, Jack returned the cart to storage. He wiped the screen clean with practiced hands. Tools in place, closet organized. His world made sense. But back upstairs, the wolves were circling. Trent slammed a folder on Madison's desk later that day. "We need better security. What if he overhears sensitive information? Who even hired him?" Madison leaned back in her chair, unfazed. "I did. 3 years ago." Trent blinked. "Why?" "He was overqualified for the role. Polite. Clean record. Showed up early. I trusted my gut." Trent scoffed. "Overqualified janitor? That's an oxymoron." Madison smiled, small and dangerous. "Funny. That's what people once said about you." The silence between them was thick, charged. Trent leaned in. "Watch your blind spots, Madison. Loyalty to the help doesn't get you a seat on the next board." She held his gaze, but her mind wandered for a moment to Jack. The way he moved, the way he listened, the way he didn't need anything from anyone, and yet, never missed a detail. She didn't know his story, but she knew strength when she saw it. And the more they pushed him, the more she felt it in her bones. This man had faced worse than boardroom bullies. Much worse. And maybe, just maybe, she needed him more than she realized. The tension was rising. But the truth? The truth was only beginning to stir. Late afternoon. Ridgewell Industries. Executive Crisis Briefing Room. Glass-walled. 28th floor. The sky outside turning amber. The building was on edge. Not because of a fire or storm. Because something worse had happened, something corporate. Something that could cost jobs, headlines, and reputations. A data breach. Major clients exposed. The company's encrypted systems had been compromised. No one knew how. No one had a solution. And the boardroom, normally calm, was now chaos. Phones buzzed. Voices clashed. Executives barked at assistants. Trent Lawson stood at the center like a general in the wrong war, throwing around words like damage control, leverage, and optics. Madison Hart paced near the windows, holding her phone tight to her ear. I need confirmation. No, not in an hour. Now. Her jaw was tight, her shoulders still. In the background, the janitor closet opened quietly. Jack stepped into the hallway with a gray tool bag slung over his shoulder. No mop today. He didn't head toward the bathrooms. He walked straight toward the boardroom. No one noticed until he opened the door. Hey, this is an executive meeting, Trent snapped. Jack didn't stop walking. He calmly approached the center of the room, stopped at the long conference table and placed his bag down with purpose. Ms. Hart, he said gently. Madison turned. Their eyes met. There was something different in his face now. Still calm, but locked in, focused like a lens, tightening on target. What is it? She asked. I believe I know how the breach happened. The room fell quiet. Trent let out a dry laugh. Oh, well, thank God. The janitor's here to save the company. But Madison raised a hand. Let him speak. Jack opened the tool bag. Inside wasn't cleaning equipment, it was a black military-grade laptop. Worn, dented, and secured with 2 levels of biometric locks. He flipped it open, logged in with a fingerprint, and the screen lit up. Custom software, live packet tracking, ghost alerts, code moving across the display like a heartbeat. I installed a passive trace monitor 3 weeks ago, Jack said. After I noticed unusual network activity near the R&D floor. Someone was tunneling traffic out of the server room through a blind. MAC address. It didn't look random. It looked trained. You're saying you what? Trent barked. You were spying on our servers? No, Jack said. I was protecting them. He turned the screen, showed the back door where it was, who accessed it. The trail led not to outside hackers but to a company-issued laptop. One assigned to Trent Lawson. The room froze. No, there's no way, this is made up, Trent said, suddenly sweating. He's not even IT. Madison stepped forward. Jack, how do you know all this? He didn't blink. Because before I was a janitor, I led a cyber operations unit under Special Forces Command. For 19 years. My job was to find threats before they exploded. Sometimes that meant bombs. Sometimes people. He held up a printed security badge. Not his Ridgewell one. An old Department of Defense clearance ID. Faded. Real. Madison stepped closer, her voice quiet. Why didn't you ever say anything? Jack's reply came soft and simple. Because I don't need a title to do the right thing. Gasps stirred through the room. Trent backed away from the screen like it was a live wire. You set me up, he hissed. Jack shook his head. You exposed yourself. I just watched. Within moments, HR reps were called. Legal counsel stepped in. Trent's protests echoed down the hallway as he was escorted out. His tie askew. The illusion of control unraveling in real time. When it was over, the boardroom emptied slowly, silent, stunned. Madison stayed behind. Jack stood across from her, folding the laptop and returning it to the bag. She spoke first. You didn't just save this company. You exposed the rot in it. Jack shrugged gently. Just cleaned up another mess. There was a pause. Not awkward, earned. She stepped closer. You know, she said, most people would have demanded a raise. Or a title. Or at least an apology. Jack looked out the window, the last of the sunset glinting off the city skyline. I've led men into firefights. Lost friends I still hear in my sleep. I've watched leaders panic and civilians pay the price. All I ever wanted was peace. This job? It gave me that. Madison's voice softened. And what if peace found you and didn't want to leave? He turned to her. Their eyes met. No more titles. No hierarchy. Just a woman who had built an empire and a man who had quietly saved it. In that moment, something shifted. Not just for them. For everyone who'd ever underestimated the quiet one in the room. The next morning at Ridgewell Industries was quieter. Not silent. Phones still rang, emails still pinged, but quieter in the way a house feels after a storm. Like the walls are still listening. Like people are still holding their breath. Jack walked in at 5:48 a.m., just as he always did. He signed in, put on his gloves, pulled his cart from the supply closet. Same uniform, same rhythm, but something had changed. As he passed the security desk, the guard Marcus, 20-something and usually too busy on his phone, stood up and offered a quiet, respectful nod. Morning, Mr. Miller. Jack paused, then nodded back. Morning. On the way up the service elevator, a junior analyst stepped in behind him. The young man kept glancing sideways, clearly working up the courage. Finally, he blurted, I saw the footage from yesterday. I didn't know. I mean, nobody knew. He held out his hand. I'm Ryan. Thank you for what you did. Jack shook it, firm but humble. Glad you're here early, Ryan. That's rare. The kid's face lit up like he'd just been promoted. By 8 a.m., word had spread. Not officially, nothing had been emailed. No announcement made, but people knew. Not the whole story, but enough to know that the man who mopped their floors had once commanded something far greater. At 8:17 a.m., someone left a fresh cup of black coffee at Jack's cleaning cart. No note. At 9:04 a.m., a mid-level project manager asked if he could run something by Jack real quick before finalizing a team strategy. At 10:40 a.m., two interns approached him by the break room to ask, gently, what it meant to stay calm under pressure. Jack answered each question simply. No sermons. No self-importance. Just a steady presence. And upstairs, in the executive suite, the shift continued. Trent Lawson's office was already being cleared out. The glass door now bore a printed sheet of paper. Vacant, under review. Nobody said it aloud, but every passing glance toward that office carried a lesson. Not about betrayal. About misjudgment. People had looked through Jack Miller for 3 years. Not at him. Through him. Now every look carried a different weight. Respect, curiosity, regret. Just after lunch, as Jack was changing a light bulb in the design wing, Madison approached. She didn't ask for privacy, didn't clear the room. She just stood near him, watching quietly until he finished. Facilities checklist? She asked, nodding at the clipboard in his hand. Just routine, Jack said, stepping down from the ladder. Some things only look fixed until the lights go out. She smiled, small, thoughtful. That was a hell of a thing you did yesterday. Jack met her eyes. Wasn't for credit. I know, she said softly. That's why it mattered. There was a pause. HR wants to offer you a consulting role in operations, she added. High-level security strategy. Badge, salary, team, whatever you want. Jack looked down at his gloved hands. Turned them over once. I appreciate that, but I'm not looking to start over. Madison nodded. She wasn't disappointed. She understood. But, Jack said, I wouldn't mind helping. Quietly. As needed. That was enough. She extended her hand, not as a CEO but as an equal. Then we'll call it what it is. Partnership. Their handshake was simple. No applause. No cameras. Just mutual respect forged in quiet. Fire. Later that evening, just before closing, Jack walked through the nearly empty top floor. He paused at the large window overlooking the city. Same view Trent used to brag about. Madison's voice came from behind him. "You never asked me why I hired you." Jack didn't turn. Didn't seem polite. She stepped beside him, arms folded. "First day you walked in, I saw how you stood. Hands at your sides, not in your pockets. I steady. And when I asked you to tell me something about yourself, you said, 'I fix things.' That was it." He smiled faintly. Still true. She looked out at the skyline, glowing gold and silver in the dusk. "You've changed this place, Jack. Not just yesterday. Every day. We just finally saw it." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The moment spoke for him. And as the office lights dimmed, and the building settled into night, Jack gathered his things. Same steps. Same cart. But something had lifted, not pride exactly. Peace. A quiet kind of victory. Earned, not demanded. And in every corner he passed, every nod he received, every silent acknowledgement, Jack Miller was no longer invisible. 3 months later, Ridgewell Industries didn't look that different. The same building, same badge scanners, same glass elevators humming up and down all day. But if you stood still long enough, just long enough to watch, you'd notice it. Meetings started on time. Departments listened more than they talked. The break room chatter had softened from gossip to conversation. People looked up when someone entered the room, especially if that someone wore gray coveralls with the name Jack stitched above the heart. He still kept the uniform, still cleaned the floors. But now he also sat in on Friday security reviews by request. Led monthly quiet leadership workshops for managers, always full. And once a week, after hours, he trained Ridgewell's small but growing threat response team in a converted storage room on the 14th floor. The plaque outside the door now read, "Resilience Room, led by J. Miller." No title, no rank, just his name. And that was more than enough. In the IT wing, where tension once crackled like static, the team had changed. Not just the software, the culture. Every desk had a laminated card now, Jack's suggestion. It read, "Stay calm, stay present, pay attention." Ryan, the young analyst who used to sneak out early, now stayed late to mentor new hires. He told them stories, not about Jack's past, but about how he listens, how he watches, how he never talks over someone, no matter how little experience they have. "He's not trying to be a hero," Ryan once told them. "He just shows up, every day. That's rarer than you think." Even Marcus at the security desk kept a tidier posture now. Wore his badge correctly. Watched more. Talked less. And upstairs, Madison Hart was different too. Still sharp. Still driven. But warmer. Slower to interrupt. Quicker to protect. She used to walk the floor once a day. Now she walked it twice. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to see people. And every so often, she'd pause at a hallway corner, just long enough to ask, "How's it going?" And mean it. She and Jack didn't talk often. But when they did, it wasn't business. She asked about the garden he was starting behind the building. He asked how her father was recovering from surgery. They shared moments that didn't need labels, just trust. Once, she passed him in the lobby after hours, leaned in close and said, "You were the best decision I ever made." He gave a small smile. "Took you long enough to realize." She laughed. First time in weeks. One quiet Wednesday, a company-wide email went out. No marketing spin. No press release. Just a single photo. Jack, standing outside with 6 Ridgewell employees. Dirt on their hands, shovels in the ground. They were planting trees. The first step in turning the old Southside parking lot into a staff garden and reflection space. Below the photo, the caption read, "Respect doesn't speak. It shows up. No signature. No explanation. But everyone knew." And by the end of the day, more than 200 employees had signed up to volunteer. Not because Jack asked. Because they wanted to follow the quietest man in the building. One night, long after most had gone home, Jack sat alone on a bench in the new garden, still unfinished but breathing. A breeze moved through the trees. Leaves rustled like old paper, like whispers of a life he used to lead. The moon hung low over Dallas, silver and still. His thermos sat beside him half full. The smell of damp soil and cut grass lingered. He didn't need noise, or medals, or headlines. He had peace now. Real peace. One earned not by disappearing but by choosing to stay visible. In the right way. A place where he could teach without preaching. Lead without commanding. Heal without hiding. Behind him, the office lights glowed softly. Warm windows stacked like bricks of gold. Somewhere inside, someone was probably still working late. Somewhere upstairs, someone might be telling a new hire, "You see him? That's Jack." Don't let the uniform fool you. But Jack didn't need to hear it. He'd done his part. And now the system was shifting, not because he forced it but because he reminded it how to breathe. As the night deepened and the world hushed again, Jack leaned back. Hands folded, eyes closed. Not a soldier. Not a janitor. Not a symbol. Just a man. Finally at ease. How many people have you walked past today without really seeing them? The quiet janitor in the hallway. The older woman stocking shelves. The man who never says much in meetings but always listens. We live in a world that rewards the loudest voices, the flashiest titles, the biggest resumes. But sometimes, true strength doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it carries a mop instead of a megaphone. And sometimes, the person you least expect holds the wisdom, courage, and calm this world desperately needs. Jack's story isn't just about hidden heroism or military pasts. It's about dignity, stillness, grace under pressure. It's about showing up with integrity, even when no one's watching. So here's a question for you. Have you ever been underestimated? Overlooked? Have you ever done the right thing, quietly without expecting praise? We'd love to hear your story. Really share it in the comments. Someone else might need to read it today. And if the story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of the human spirit. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and never underestimate the quiet ones.